Hello, I'm Sandra Pollock. Really glad you've joined me for Inspiring You. I am pleased to have another guest, and this gentleman lives and works here in Leicester, as we all do. He is a senior lecturer at the De Montfort University. He is the chair of Global Hands and an author of no less than 5 books. His name is Momodou Sallah, and I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Absolutely.
Momodou, welcome to Inspiring You.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, I'm excited because you are so busy and you do so much, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk to you. But let's start with, where are you from?
I was born in the Gambia, and
Okay.
I lived in the Gambia until I was 24 years, and then I moved over to the UK, and I've been living here for the past 18 years now.
18, wow, okay. So coming from and living in the Gambia, what were your aspirations? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wasn't sure when I was probably in my early teens. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to, but I think I was confronted by a number of issues. I was confronted with issues to do with poverty, to do with development, to do with suffering. This is, juxtaposed to living in a very, very good environment, where there's so much potential, but there was also so much area for development.
Yeah.
And I guess as I went into my, later teens, I kind of wanted to do some kind of development work.
Okay.
So it was somebody to do with working with communities, kind of catalyzing development. And I think later on, I started being a youth worker and becoming more involved in the Students' Union, in humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross, and end up having a specialty of working with young people and communities.
Okay, right. So one of the things you do is lecture in a senior lecture at De Montfort University. What do you lecture in?
Yeah, I teach mainly on the youth and community work program.
Right.
So I teach. I teach a module and a half on the BA. I teach 3 modules on the masters, and I've got 5 PhD students. So my areas are mainly around youth and community development, around participatory methodologies, around diversity, and around globalization. And I do a lot of lectures around all of this topic.
Right, wonderful. Now, a little birdie told me that you got an award recently. Can you tell me about it? What was the award called?
Last November, I won the Times Highest Most Innovative Lecturer in the UK award.
Wow.
So it was just basically universities in the UK were invited to nominate their most innovative lecturers, and I was one of 4 or 5 people shortlisted. And then on the award night, I was declared the winner.
That must have been an amazing experience for you.
Yeah, it was surreal. I mean, there were over 1,000 people in the hall, and I was thinking, okay, it's good to get a nomination. And the next thing, people were saying, "It's you, it's you," and I was like, okay, okay. But it was good. It was good. I mean, we've been doing a lot of things, and we've been I consider myself as a pedagogic innovator, stretching the boundaries of normality, but also engage in disruptive pedagogies that disrupt normality that people settle into.
Yes.
So, and I've been using a lot of informal experiential methodologies, which hopefully inspired this award. So it's good to get the validation from the Times Higher Award, which is considered the most prestigious. Yeah.
It is. It is. So, well, congratulations.
Thank
and
you,
well
thank
done.
you, thank
Well
you.
done. So, Global Hands. You're the chair of Global Hands.
yeah.
Tell us about Global Hands.
Yeah, Global Hands is a social enterprise that I set up with 4 other members of staff and students of De Montfort University 4 or 5 years ago. And the idea was like, Sandra, there are so many things that are going wrong. And there's people are born in poverty and suffering, they live in poverty and suffering, they die in poverty and suffering without an alternative to construct something different.
Yes.
And I think there is almost this hopelessness where people feel that there's nothing they can do. And our job, our role, our mission in Global Hands is to breathe back hope into these situations and to say to people that there is something we can do. And when we support people build their capacities. So that's why we came together, and then we were able to set up Global Hands, which now has been going very well. It's has a publishing arm. We published so far 7 books and an academic journal, mainly around critical Southern perspective, counter-orthodoxy perspectives. We've got an education and public engagement department. We do things from organizing European seminars, like we had about 30 people from 11 European countries just over 6 months ago. They came to Leicester. We were teaching them around cultural competence. We went to one of the most deprived wards as well and worked with some of the most disadvantaged young people to build their capacity so that they could set up a youth forum and do things for themselves. So the education public engagement is all about provoking consciousness and supporting people and take action. We've got also an international development arm. We've built a development hub in the Gambia. We can accommodate 35 people, which can has got a hall with a capacity of 300 people, which is now engaged in building capacity and supporting people. And we're just in the process of building a library, which would be the second biggest library in the Gambia. I've been doing this with my students, and they're going to open it hopefully in June. That's in terms of international development. We've taken about 250 students over the last 3 years from DMU, to the Gambia. And it's all about critical pedagogy. They could understand slavery, colonialism, they could understand development, they could understand globalization. And that's part of our international development arm. And the last bit, because I've talked about publishing, I've talked about international development, I've talked about education, public engagement, and the last bit is about chapters. We've got a chapter in the Gambia, we've got one in Damonford University, we've got one in London, and we've got one in Leicester. And these chapters are how 5-6 people can come together, or even 100 people, and begin to do something different.
So it's about making a difference and helping the people in that vicinity see that they can make a difference and help them to get the ideas, the resources from where they are right now to actually make a difference.
Because the biggest problem we find is that there is almost an affliction of poverty of the imagination, where people are imprisoned mentally, where they can, and once you unblock this affliction, you could see that people can fly. And our job is just to say, how do we provoke people so that they can see the world in a different way in order to be able to interact with the world in a different way.
And I mean, that for me is so the key to a lot of the things that I do. It's about giving people sometimes the permission to think differently. Because even if they would like to, sometimes the surroundings, their background, their culture, what they're used to holds them back because they don't want to be different from the others around them. But if someone gives them the permission to say it's okay to think differently, then that's step one. Then step two is saying, well, if I'm thinking differently, can I make this happen? And if they've got help and the resources, then 9 times out of 10 they do make a difference. And
Paulo Freire put it very well. I mean, just like you put it, that that people are often seduced by a defective logic of the system. And they succumb to this defective logic, and they begin to see the world in a very almost limiting kind of like self-depreciating way. And part of what we do is just to shatter that. And once that is shattered, what they call false consciousness or whatever, then you can begin to believe in your ability. Because you've been told for so long that you are only good for this, that you begin to internalize that, and you cannot think different. And you don't have the inspiration, you don't even have the vocabulary to think outside of what you... And I think to begin, I mean, in our work, we call it pedagogies of disruption and pedagogies of hope. How do we engage?
So just explain a little bit what pedagogy you're making. What that means.
Pedagogies of disruption, because we have been normalized, and we have been kind of like seduced by this logic of the system, where we're
put into boxes.
That limit us, but also we believe, because the mental prison is the strongest prison. You know, and I think what we try to do is to disrupt that normality. How do we disrupt that normality? How do we get you to actually, you know, shatter that mental prison, to begin to understand your true potential? Nobody else has the vocabulary to define you. You are the only one with the vocabulary to define yourself, because you know yourself better than anybody else. But also, whether it's hegemonic forces or particular interests that make you think in a particular way. And we're saying that, no, when we started Global Hands, we did not have a penny.
Yes.
We've not had any major funding from Global Hands. We've done everything that we've done by doing the fundraising ourselves.
Wow. Yes.
So we cannot be defined by others. And I think that is the disruptive pedagogy. We want to disrupt that normality.
Yes.
And the pedagogies of hope, based on the work of Fred and other community educators, is about how do we generate hope?
Yes.
Because if people are hopeless, they have no reason to get up.
Absolutely.
But if you can generate pedagogies of hope, which makes them believe that they've got a stake, they've got a future, they've got something that's worth getting up for.
Yes.
Then people become motivated.
Changes
Absolutely.
everything. That's fascinating. We could talk about this
Absolutely, forever, yeah.
So the other thing which I love about you is that you've written, you're the author of 5 books.
Yeah.
Gives us just a quick summary of what those books are about.
Yeah. I mean, I have one is I co-created with Carlton Housen, which is working with black young people, which is looking at the situation of black people in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of housing, in terms of policing, and how that limits them.
Yes.
But also, what are these things that we can do to do something better? There's also another one called Global Youth Work, taking it personally, which is understanding globalization, global inequality, which is looking at kind of like almost structural violence and how that is inflicted at the personal, at the local, at the national, and the global, and how that basically we can develop pedagogies to resist that. There's also another one called Europe's Established and Emerging Immigrant Communities, again with my partner in crime, Carlton. We've co-edited that. And then that is about Europe's changing demographics, and now that affects everything that we do. So from refugees, from health, from housing, from community cohesion, and all of these things. The other one is called Innocent Questions, which is my collection of poetry, because poetry gives me normality, and it gives me a means to escape without being violent. so that is a therapeutic period, and that talks about my struggle from being an African schoolboy, walking to school for miles under the hot sun, to being a consummate professional within Babylon, and how that actually the tensions and the contradictions. And the last book I wrote came out in 2004. Called Global Youth Work, Provoking Consciousness and Taking Action, which is about understanding globalization, development models, global inequality, and also the discipline of global youth work, which has likely not been theorized. So I have gone quite in detail in terms of theorizing it, also showing empiric evidence, because I've done one of the biggest studies around the efficacy of global youth work, involving about 1,200 people across the UK. So sharing the evidence and why it works. So I mean, I've been writing a range of things around globalization, around cultural competence and diversity.
A busy man.
Yes, I am.
So, what or who has been your inspiration over the years? Yeah,
I've had a lot of very good people around me. I've had, for example, my mom, who I see, struggle and refuse to give up, and just show me that everything is possible. So from very close quarters, my dad and my mom, but most of my mom, because, I've seen the struggle she's made, and she always was there to make things happen. The other people, from Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. So you grew up, kind of like reading his stuff, to the Garveys, even Martin Luther King, and you talk about, there's also a guy in the Gambia called Halifa Sallah, he's also been quite inspirational in terms of, when you are a young person, grow up, you look within the horizon and you see people who can articulate things as well.
Yes.
So, I've had a lot of, but also I've been inspired by ordinary people. For example, I had an uncle who was blind from a young age, and he was a carpenter as well. And that was in the Gambia, he was unheard of, but he was able to do things and to make the best furniture that you could ever see, and everything. And he was blind, totally blind. So he was so I've had a lot of very inspirational people who refuse to be defined by circumstances.
Yes. And you're an inspiration to us.
Thank you.
So it's been amazing talking to you. I could talk to you for another hour or so. One last thing, if you had a gem to leave with you, our viewers around inspiration, what would you say to them?
It's simple, that nobody has the vocabulary to define you. You are the only one capable of defining yourself. And you have to wake up and believe and build hope and make it happen. You know, dream. But spend every waking moment, you know, laziness is not going to make it happen. You're going to toil, you're going to struggle. I have to wake up sometimes at 4 in the morning in order to do all my work, and I stay up until 12 midnight because I have to go to the library. So no, you have to toil, you have to graft to make it happen, but do not be limited.
Okay, wow. Momodou Sallah, thank you so much for coming in. I can see that you certainly deserve that award. So again, congratulations and well done.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you for having me. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope that has been inspiring to you. It certainly has. What an amazing man. Thank you for viewing, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. This is Sandra saying bye-bye for now.